Welcome. This is a 1-hour yin sequence. Yin yoga is designed with the idea of just opening the soft tissue. It's more of a passive practice. I'll bring you into the poses and see if you can let go. Just allow your body to open just a little bit more in areas where you might be feeling tight. As we go through this practice, I invite you to be open to grace. Be open to whatever sensations come your way, both good and bad. And then let them go. Let go of the challenging sensations. Let them go through the back door. Life is filled with so many sensations, both good and bad, life experiences. We can think of, hopefully we've got many happy, wonderful, joyous memories. And those we love to hang on to, and we experience them so fully. It's a magnificent gift in life. But life is also filled with some real challenges, stresses, for some people trauma. And so it's important to know how to face those situations and then let them go. Ideally, if we don't hang on to them, it's easier for us to move past. But in so dealing with some of these difficult situations, sometimes we close ourselves off. We just wake up in the morning and think, I can't deal with whatever it is that's going on. I don't feel strong enough. And so we close ourselves off. It's a protective mechanism, understandably so. But by doing that, we're closing ourselves off to some of the rich, joyous experiences of life. So I invite you to practice with an open mind and an open heart. Any sensations, both good and bad, welcome them all, but keep the back door open for the challenging situations and let them go. Just be here for a couple more breaths. Slowly bring your hands behind you and uncross your legs. Just let your knees roll side to side. And now if you have a bolster, you can use that. If you don't have a bolster and you're using a blanket, take the rolled up blanket and place it lengthwise on your mat, whatever prop you're using. And then turn and have your hips, if you're using a bolster, place your fist at the end of the bolster between your fist and hips. If you're using a blanket, just bring your hips close to the edge of the blanket. And then slowly roll your spine onto whatever prop you're using. Open your arms. Knees are bent, feet flat on the mat. Bring the feet as wide as the mat. So wider than hip distance apart. And then slowly bring your knees together. Notice whatever sensations are feeling in your body. Just observe and then let go. You're welcome to keep your eyes open, or soften your gaze, or close your eyes. Do what's right for you. Just breathe. We'll be here for 4 or 5 more breaths. Can you let go a little bit more? Now gently, just heel toe your feet together. So your feet and knees are together. Now let your knees open wide and bring the soles of your feet together. So now it looks, so feet together and knees are wide. And just breathe. Remember all sensations, both good and bad. How does this feel on your body? Welcome them all, and then keep a back door open and let it go. Can you relax just a little bit more? It's 4 or 5 more breaths. So slowly bring your knees together. And now just lift yourself up enough that you can remove the blanket or the bolster, whatever you're using, and remove it from your mat. If you have blocks handy, grab a block. If you don't have any blocks, you can take the same blanket and roll it up so that it's about maybe 3 or 4 inches thick, and it just should be about as wide, maybe 5 or 6 inches wide. And then with your feet flat on the mat, knees bent, take the prop you're using and lift your hips up and slide it and place it under your hips. And then let your arms rest by your side, palms facing up in supported bridge. If you'd like to open your chest a bit more, lift your chest up and then Squeeze your shoulder blades together. And breathe here. In this pose, think of a memory or an experience that you just loved, that you just enjoyed immensely, that maybe brought joy and love and happiness to you. Just think of that memory. Embrace it. Hang on to it. And then let it go. And now gently lift your hips up just enough to remove the prop you're using and lower your hips back down to your heels. And then gently hug your knees to your chest. You're welcome to stay still here, or maybe rock side to side, whatever feels right for you. And now carefully think of a situation that was really challenging. Could be the loss of a loved one, it could be a challenging, stressful situation at work or with family or friend. If it's too much for you and it brings up too much negative memories, let it go. But either way, just for a couple of breaths, think about a really challenging situation. It might have been something that you wanted to avoid. But just reflect on it. We're safe here. But reflect on it, but then let it go through the back door. Can you let it go? Try not to hang on to anything. Sometimes it helps on the exhale to imagine you're exhaling all the stresses out. And then slowly reach your hands behind your knees. Now you can either roll over onto one side and come up to a seated position, or rock along your spine and come up to a seated position. Whatever serves you best. And then slowly come onto your feet. And then fold forward. Have your feet parallel to each other, hip distance apart. And just fold, coming into a forward fold. If you can, keep your spine straight, knees can be as bent as you need to. And let go. If your hands reach the mat, and place your hands on the mat. If they don't, and you're using blocks, if you have blocks, you can place your hands on blocks. And if you don't have blocks, you can also cross your arms and let your elbows and head dangle. Just come back to letting go. And now slowly release your hands if you're crossed. And very slowly keep your chin tucked. Come on up to a standing position. Take 3 or 4 breaths to do so. Come to a standing position. So feet are hip distance apart. So find your hip bones, and that's hip distance apart. It's actually not out here. So feet are hip distance apart. then arms by your side. Coming into Tadasana, mountain pose. So check in with your feet that your weight is evenly distributed on each feet. Sometimes we tend to lean to one side or the other. Come back to center. And now you roll forward onto your toes and then back onto your heels. And come to center, both front and back, and side to side. Palms turned out. Just lift your shoulders up. Draw them back. And then relax. Notice how your body feels in mountain pose. Your next inhale, reach your arms up over your head. As you exhale, lower your arms, interlace your fingers behind your back, and stay where you are. And now reach your knuckles back and open your chest. Think about chest forward, shoulders back. And now release your hands and interlace your fingers the opposite way. It might feel awkward. And now reach your knuckles back again and open your chest. Now keep your hands where they are. Bend your knees. Try to keep your spine straight. Lead with your chest and fold forward, letting your hands come up. And now just interlace your fingers the other way and stretch your hands back. And breathe. Can you fold a little more deeply and let go? One more breath here. Release your hands and come into a full forward fold. Maybe straightening one leg, maybe the other. Can you let go? And then lower onto your knees. And from here, come right onto your belly. So, walk your hands forward to start. Move the props out of your way. Have your elbows past where your shoulders are, but have your elbows shoulder distance apart, so straight in front of your shoulders. Hands, fingers spread wide. And then now lift your shoulders and chest up. Send your chest forward. You're on the tops of your feet. Your toes are pointed. So this is a variation of Sphinx pose. This is a good way to practice it. If you have any issues with your lower back around your sacrum, because you want to make sure your rib cage, the lower rib cage, is touching the mat. If you have no issues with your lower back and you'd like to come into this a little more deeply, walk your elbows back and have your elbows either under or almost under your shoulders. And send your chest forward. Look straight ahead in Sphinx pose. Breathe. Be open to the grace of the pose. Stay present and welcome all sensations, both good and bad. But keep that back door open and let it go. Be here for a couple more breaths. And then slowly release your hands and lower onto the mat. Place your hands under your shoulders and come up onto hands and knees. And from here, we're coming into a variation of child's pose. So again, stay on the tops of your feet and lower your hips to your heels. If you've got issues with your knees and this is not comfortable, you can take your blanket and roll it up really thin and place it right between behind your knees, and then just have that blanket. It just feels it might be a little gentler on your knees. And so from here, you're on the tops of your feet, lower your hips to your heels, and then just come forward. Whoops. Lift your inhale, lift your left arm up. As you exhale, thread your left hand under and rest your left shoulder and left side of your face on the mat. Right hand can stay forward, or right hand can come behind you. Whatever version is comfortable for you. Breathe. Try to stay present with the pose. Be open to grace. Be aware of what's happening and let it go. Just one more breath. And then place your right hand back on the mat and lift yourself up. And both hands are on the mat. We'll do the other side. So slowly lower your head and arms onto the mat. As you inhale, reach your right arm up. As you exhale, thread that right hand under your left arm and lower and rest on that right shoulder and right side of your head. Option to lift the left arm up and rest it behind you, or keep it in front. Stay with it. Just a few more breaths. slowly lower your left hand back down to the mat. Place your right hand on the mat. Before we come into the next pose, let's come back into a forward fold. So tuck your toes under. Lift your knees up off the mat. And walk your feet forward to your hands. And just fold here. Maybe straightening one knee and then the other. Let your head go. Let your shoulders go. And then place your hands on the mat and lower your knees back down to the mat. And now from here, come onto the tops of your feet. Have your hips directly above your knees. And you want to keep them here. If you have a bolster or a blanket handy and you want to use the prop, have it handy, just in front of you. And now keeping your hips directly above your knees, walk your hands forward. And then if you're using a bolster, you can rest your chest on the bolster, or I prefer it without a prop, a blanket or bolster right along your chest, and then lower your chest in the direction of the mat. You can rest on one side of your head, so turning and facing one way. This should be opening your chest. And notice all sensations, both the ones that feel really great and the ones that might be challenging you. Welcome them all. And then let go. Keep that back door open. Just a couple more breaths here. And then switch sides and rest your other cheek. Turn if you're facing to the right, turn to the left. We'll be in this pose for not quite a minute more. And just a couple more breaths. And then slowly walk your hands back to under your shoulders. If you have blocks handy, grab the blocks for this next pose. If you don't have blocks, it's not at all necessary. But tuck your toes, tuck all 10 toes, and make sure all 10 toes are touching the mat. And then walk your hands back and sit right on your heels. Here's where the blocks are a nice support. Is that come right onto your heels and sit up straight. If you're using blocks, you can take some of the weight out of your feet. If you're not using blocks and it's too much, just come forward a bit. This is a great pose to stretch the arch of the foot, to stretch the plantar fascia. If you've heard of plantar fasciitis, it's something you really don't want to get. It's just a very painful sensation on your heels, and this is a really great stretch to help release plantar fasciitis. Welcome all sensations, both good and bad, and let it go. Try to stay with it. Just a couple more breaths. And And then gently walk your hands forward and very gently lift your feet up off the mat, maybe circling your ankles. Go both directions. And then now come onto the tops of your feet. If you're not ready to, just take another moment and stretch your toes, your feet. Maybe wiggle your ankles side to side. This time take your knees as wide as the mat. Point your toes so your toes are touching each other. And then lower your hips to your heels. And rest either your forehead on the mat, or you can turn your head one side or the other. If you have a bolster, some people like to rest your whole chest and body right on a bolster. Any version that feels right for you. And let go. Can you relax into this pose? Can you soften wherever your body is feeling tense and holding on? If you're resting on one side of your face, just turn the other way. And if you're resting on your forehead, just stay right where you are. Just a couple more breaths here. Walk your hands under your shoulders. And walk your knees together. And then walk your hands forward, tuck your toes. Lift your knees up off your mat. And walk your hands and feet together. And fold forward. See if you can have your spine straight. So bend your knees as much as you need to, maybe resting your torso right on your thighs. From here, maybe straighten one leg and then the other. And just let go. One more breath. And then slowly lower down to a seated position. This next pose we're doing is deer pose. So actually before we do that, bring your hands behind you. Take your feet about hip distance apart, or maybe as wide as the mat. And just roll your knees side to side. And now come back to center. And now roll your knees over to the left. And now adjust your feet, your legs I should say. Take your left knee and make a 90-degree angle between your left thigh and shin. So your knees bent at a 90-degree angle, and flex that left foot. And now bring the right knee and place it on the mat right behind your left heel. And now take your right knee and make a 90-degree angle with it, flexing that right foot. Have the bolster or block handy. And if you don't have either, you don't need it, but it's a nice option. So your knees are both in a 90-degree angle. I'm going to swing around so you can see what I'm doing. And then now twist to the left. So walk your hands behind your left hip, or to the side really. Now you might find that this is enough of a twist already and enough of a stretch, so just stay right here. Or if you have no props, just come right onto your elbows. Or if you have a bolster or blanket, you can rest your torso right on the bolster blanket. Any version that works for you. And just breathe here. Just try to be open to the grace of the pose. Welcome whatever's happening. And then let go. Now take just a couple more breaths here. And slowly place your hands on the mat if they're not already there, and come back to center. Placing your hands behind you, knees bent. Bring the soles of the feet together and let the knees open wide. Now for this version of Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose, have your legs more in a diamond shape. So you're having your feet a little further away from you rather than close to you. And start with your hands behind you and straighten your spine. And with your hands behind you, you can push your chest forward. If you can do so with keeping your spine straight, you can reach your hands forward, grabbing your shins, maybe your ankles. But if your back is rounding here too much, just use your hands behind you. And then try to let go. If your elbows are anywhere near your knees, you can use your elbows to let your knees open a little wider. Just breathe here. Can you let go just a little bit more? If it's getting challenging, try to stay with it. Can you release? Can you relax where you're feeling a deep sensation and let it go? There's a couple more breaths. And slowly come on back up. Just place your hands behind you. Uncross your legs, and again, just windshield wiper your knees left and right a couple of times. And now the next time your knees are over to the right, pause here. And again, adjust your left knee. Your right knee. Start with your right knee and make a 90-degree angle with it. And flex that right foot. And now bring your left knee and place it on the mat directly behind your right foot. Not sure if you can see me. And now make a 90-degree angle with your left knee. If you're using a bolster, bring it on to this side or a blanket. And now with each knee, 90-degree angle, left knee right behind right heel. Feet are flexed. Twist to the right. And then walk your hands. You might just find that keeping your hands here is enough. So just stay here. Try to breathe into the pose. Or come onto your elbows. If you want to use a block or a blanket, you can place that under your chest and support the pose. Any version that feels right for you. You can rest your head on the mat or the bolster. Last few breaths here. Slowly come onto your hands. If you're using a bolster or blanket, just move it aside. And then come back to center. For the next pose, we'll be on our backs. So if you have a blanket or bolster, place it along the long side of the mat. Here we'll be repeating a couple of the poses we did at the beginning. And just notice how they feel on your body now, towards coming to closer to the end of the practice. Notice how you feel. Have you been able to let go? Just be aware of the different sensations, or maybe the same sensations. So if you're using a bolster, bring a fist between the end of the bolster and your hips. If you're using a blanket, just have your hips close to the end of the blanket and lower onto your back. Have your spine and your head supported by your prop. Arms out by your side, palms facing up. Bring the soles of your feet as wide as the mat, and then bring your knees together. Just breathe. If you want to open your chest a little bit more, use your elbows, open your chest more, and then squeeze your shoulder blades together, and then come back into the pose. Just breathe here. Scan your body. Notice where you feel relaxed. Notice if you feel any tension. Wherever you feel a little tension, where your body's holding on, breathe into that area and let it go. Be here for a couple more breaths. Just breathe. Now slowly walk your feet together. So your feet and knees will be together. Now open your knees wide and let the soles of your feet come together. Just stay on your prop or on your back. So it looks like this. Soles of your feet together and knees open wide. Again, your legs are in a diamond shape. And let go. Can you soften your hips? Can you let your knees open a little wider? If your mind wanders here, come back to the stillness. Stay present with the pose. Just a couple more breaths. And then slowly bring your knees together. Remove the bolster or blanket, whatever you're using. And then come right back onto the mat, directly on the mat. And softly hug your knees to your chest. And for this, you may want to just stay still, hugging your knees. Or you may want to just softly, slowly circle your knees. Just go both directions if you're doing that. You could hug your knees close and your hips might lift up off the mat. Or you can have your knees a little further, supporting your hips onto the mat. Just a couple more breaths here. And then slowly lower your feet to the mat and straighten your legs. Now reach your arms up over your head. And with your right hand, hold on to your left wrist. Stretch your left hand as far away from you as you can. And now bring your hands over towards the right. Walk your feet over to the right. So you're making almost an arc with your body. So your hips are to the left, hands and feet to the right. This is called Bananasana. So think of a banana shape. Get a nice stretch on that left side body. And then walk your hands and feet back to center and switch hands. So straighten, reach your right hand away from you as much as you can. With your left hand, hold on to your right wrist. Walk your feet over to the left and hands over to the left, making a banana shape the other side. And then walk your hands and legs back to center. Your arms come in a T position. So perpendicular to your spine. And bend your knees and place the soles of your feet on the mat. Let your knees roll to the left and turn your gaze to the right. Right palm can be up. In a gentle twist. If you'd like a deeper twist, take your left knee and cross it over your right. Or just keep your knees uncrossed. Just breathe into this. Can you let go? Be open to whatever's happening in your body. Slowly come on back to center. Uncross your legs if they're crossed. If you wish to cross your right knee over left, you can. You don't need to. You can also have them uncrossed. And in whatever version you prefer, let your knees roll to the right and turn your gaze to the left. Breathe. See if you can let go a little more in this twist. Just a couple more breaths here. And then slowly bring your knees back to center and gently hug your knees to your chest. If it feels right, you can rock side to side or keep them still. And then slowly, the next pose is Shavasana. So we'll be here for a little over 5 minutes. If you're coming into Shavasana and you want to have a blanket over you, get the blanket ready. Or if you're using an eye pillow, gently placing the eye pillow over your eyes. Let your arms be by your side and straighten your legs. A variation of Shavasana is to come into a seated position for a seated meditation. So whichever you prefer. If you're laying down in Shavasana, just let your palms be up. Relax every muscle in your body and let go. If thoughts come into your head, notice them and then release them and let them go. Allow your breath to deepen. Bring awareness to your fingers, your toes. Gently begin moving your arms and legs. If you're laying down in Shavasana, gently hug your knees to your chest and rock side to side. And slowly, in your own time, make your way up to a comfortable seated position. I invite you to take this practice of being open to grace and open to all things that life brings you. I invite you to take that off the mat and practice it off the mat after we've practiced it on the mat. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste. And this is Winston. He was sleeping during our practice. Thank you.